So let's answer the question, where do you get your protein? As I told you, I find many people obsess about this. They think that if they switch to a plant-based diet and so forth, they're not going to get enough protein. So we know that protein is important. You need it for growth, you need it for muscle function, you need it to make hormones, you need to make enzymes, and you need to have the right amount for the repair and the maintenance of your muscle tissue. So the myth of the need for a tremendous amounts of protein started in 1914. They found that rats grew better when they gave them more protein. In 1945, they found that there are 10 very important amino acids that are necessary to have complete nutrition. So back then, they called animal protein class A and vegetable protein class B, as if somehow is deficient or something along the lines. Well, if you want to eat plenty of protein, then maybe you should drink rat's milk. Because, see, in this chart, you can see that the rat milk has the highest protein. And the reason why it has such high protein is because the rat needs to double its weight in only 4.5 days. Okay? Notice how cow's protein with a 3.3, the cow needs that because it needs to double its weight 47. But I don't see any cows here tonight. I haven't heard a moo. That I'm aware, there's none here. We are humans, and our breast milk for humans is actually very different than the milk for cows. Notice, the amount of protein is much less, is 1.2, because we need to double our weights as babies in 120 days. So the problem is that excess protein actually starts causing multiple problems in your health because we are not designed to have so much protein. So this is what are called the 8 essential amino acids. These are the parts of the protein that you need to eat to have enough protein and complete protein. Now notice, these are the names on the right, they're shortened, but notice how much you need on that recommended side of things. Can you see that? Notice how much protein there is in broccoli. There is plenty of protein. There is plenty on asparagus, beans, oats, corn, sweet potato, baked potato, brown rice, tomato, pumpkins, whole wheat flour. I'm telling you, to be deficient on protein usually is because you're not eating enough. You just need to make sure that you are eating enough. There's plenty of protein. As I tell my patients when they say, "Doctor, when am I going to get my protein?" I told them, where did the horse get his protein? How many steaks he ate, to have those tremendous muscles, that horse. There is plenty of protein around. In fact, in the vegetable world, if you take grams of protein per 100 grams of food, notice that there are foods that are loaded with this protein. See, as you move down, you can see more and more and more. So usually, as a general rule, legumes as a general rule, nuts. Those are very high foods that have lots of protein. In fact, you see the essential amino acids there and how much different foods have it. Look at broccoli. Broccoli is loaded with these good proteins. In fact, it's not only broccoli. Any green vegetable, they're actually loaded with proteins. So does legumes. That's why you should be eating legumes every single day. Notice Michael Greger, I'm co-author with him in a nutrition book. Notice what he says. Surprising that there is so much fuss about protein in this country when less than 3% of adults don't make the cut. Presumably, folks on extreme calorie-restricted diets who just aren't eating enough food, period. But 97% of Americans get enough protein. There is a nutrient, though, for which 97% of Americans and Australians, by the way, are deficient. Now, that's a problem nutrient, don't you think? That's something we really have to work on. Less than 3% of Americans and Australians get even the recommended minimum adequate intake of fiber. So the question is not where do you get your protein, but what? Where do you get your fiber? That is the answer you need to find, because I'm telling you, here in Australia, this is a huge problem. And when you go and check statistics, they even, you even go to some restrooms here in Australia, and they even have the magazine rack there, because they plan to stay there for a long time. When they go to the restroom, that's not normal, because of so much fiber deficiency. So here are your top 55 fiber foods. You don't need to memorize this list, you just need to follow the principle. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, your beans and peas, whole grains, and nuts and seeds. These things are loaded with fiber. Your goal should be 40 grams of fiber a day. That should be your goal for fiber. So you find plenty, for each 100 grams, how much protein you're getting. Those beans are just loaded with that good protein. Not only legumes, also your nuts and seeds, they're also quite loaded. And as well as your vegetables. As I was mentioning to you, broccoli is very loaded, but is not the only one. Look at artichokes, Brussels sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, and so forth. There is plenty of protein, so you don't have to be afraid. In fact, there's another factor here. See, we are damaging tremendously our planet by our bad food choices. This is a study of how much land you require in order to get only 100 grams of protein. Notice that lamb and mutton, beef, cheese, milk, they're very inefficient sources because you require tremendous amount of land, you cause a bunch of pollution and so forth just to get a tiny little bit of protein. Instead, if we focus, instead of doing tofu, peas, groundnuts, and so forth, this is a much more efficient way of getting plenty of protein without necessarily having to damage our environment. The same story with the famous carbon footprint. So you see that animal foods are the foods that require a lot of carbon footprint in order to acquire them, compared to plant-based foods, tofu, beans, peas, nuts. You don't generate that much. I actually have done research myself. This is one research that we did. We actually presented at Stanford University, one of the top universities in the world. And we were sharing here how those foods that have a very high water footprint, in other words, you need a lot of water to produce them, which happen to be animal products, they are related to poor mental health. While the foods that require less amount of water actually have much less of a footprint. So, what's the problem of eating too much protein? Well, one challenge is that urea that is generated. I actually have done research on the subject. In this study, we were documenting how females that are eating those high protein diets, those crazy diets that are on the internet, the keto diet and the high protein diet and so forth, those ladies happen to have more hormonal problems. Those ladies happen to have more issues with their mental health compared to those who don't do that. And this is the biggest problem. Let's put it in a graphical way. If you're eating your right amount of protein, and you, at the end of the day, what happened is that the calcium you eat, you actually took that calcium in your body. Okay, that's why the graphic is above, that 48 grams of protein a day. But if you eat 95% of calcium, of protein, and you ate 1,400 milligrams of calcium, what ends up happening, your body actually loses calcium. In fact, if you eat even more protein, 142 grams of protein a day, notice the tremendous loss of calcium that you have. So that's the irony of irony. People take high protein foods like dairy because they want their calcium, but at the end of the day, you actually lose more calcium that you're taking. And that explains the following graphic. Show me the countries that take the most dairy. I'm going to show you the countries with the highest amount of osteoporosis. I know, I used to live there. I used to live in Norway. I speak Norwegian, Very high dairy intake, one of the highest rates of fractures because of osteoporosis. Another factor is the following. Many times people eat foods too high in phosphorus. And when you eat too much phosphorus and too little calcium, you actually lose calcium in your body. So where do we get that phosphorus? On sodas, for example. Notice too much phosphorus, not enough calcium. T-bone, ham, salmon, and so forth. Instead, what we need to do, we need to have this type of ratio. Foods that have a lot of calcium but have little phosphorus. These are the foods that stimulate to have strong bones, ladies, Notice that they are all plant foods. Lamb's quarter is not the lamb, it's a plant. Yesterday I showed you the plant, it's a weed that grows wild. And kale and turnip and mustard greens. I was surprised when I went to New Zealand, they actually raise those cattle with kale. I mean, come on, the cows are healthier than the population there, Don't give it to the cows, eat it yourself. Kale is a wonderful food. So where do we get the phosphorus? Notice that it is dairy products. Notice that it is meat, poultry, and fish. You do need a little bit of phosphorus, but not too much. So if you switch to a whole food, plant-based diet, then you're eliminating that excess phosphorus that is actually literally damaging your health. So what are some of the factors that are increasing the risk for fractures, for weak bones? Well, anticonvulsive drugs, smoking. If your mother had hip fracture, if you don't do enough exercise and your heart beats too hard, that happens if you don't do enough exercise, if you're using benzodiazepines, and if you are taking caffeine, you tremendously increase your risk for osteoporosis. So the problem is that when you eat that excess protein, something needs to get rid of that excess protein. And who does that? Your kidneys. And day in and day out with such high amount of protein, you end up hurting your kidneys. Notice this fascinating study. They have patients with diabetes that already had damage to their kidneys, and then they switch those patients to a whole food plant-based diet. Notice how the damage to the kidneys stopped. One of the many, many reasons why the diabetic should switch to a whole food plant-based diet. So we know also that whole food plant-based diet helps protect the loss of the protein, because the kidneys get damaged. In many cases of diabetes, your body starts throwing away the protein, and that's not good because you need the protein to keep up the health and so forth. So notice what happened here. As a person switched their diet, the body didn't throw away the protein, instead started gaining the protein in the body, as the body was able, their kidney was able to retain better that protein. And this one, also very interesting. This is a study in which they had vegetable protein and animal protein. So notice the animal protein maintained the levels of cholesterol, while the vegetable protein started decreasing very much the levels of cholesterol in the body. And then they switched. The one that was eating the vegetable, they put him to eat animal products. The ones that were using animals, they switched to a vegetarian diet. And notice, by doing that switch, the amount of cholesterol started going down very fast in 3 weeks. I've seen this many times. So that's how fast your body starts going in the right direction. And we know that this happens even in rabbits. You put rabbits on an animal-based diet, their cholesterol will start going up. And here is what they found on rabbits: which foods raise the most the cholesterol. What's there on the number one list? Eggs. They've been asking me about eggs and so forth. Here it is, one of the worst things you can do for your cholesterol. Second one, skim milk, turkey, casein, then eggs, fish, beef, chicken, pork, and as I mentioned to you, the white part of the egg, even though it doesn't have cholesterol, it raises the cholesterol in the blood. That's what you're seeing there. While plant proteins actually lower the cholesterol. So, as I mentioned in the previous lecture, having that cholesterol too high end up damaging the vessels that go to your brain, increasing your risk of dementia. And here you can see the foods that lower the cholesterol. So as a general rule, foods that are high in fiber, the higher the fiber, the more they lower the cholesterol. Compared to the average animal protein, notice that it raises tremendous the levels of cholesterol. And look at this other fascinating study. The risk for lymphoma or glandular cancer. Notice that the more they eat cows, the more the risk of this type of cancers. It's very clear here, very linear, the relationship. That's why it's not a good idea to be having those high animal consumptions. And this other one, very interesting study, it was showing that when you're eating, see, vegetable proteins and animal proteins actually have many ratios of different sulfur and different things. So when you're eating the animal foods, your immune system actually decreases. While when you're eating the vegetable-based foods, the plant-based foods, notice that the function of your immune system improves. And there were studies like this during coronavirus. I don't know if you ever saw them, how people that were eating a whole food plant-based diet had better protection against this COVID-19. And the reason why is because it stimulates the immune system very much. So here are the foods that you can get those good amino acids to improve your immune system. Notice the principle is simple. Legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, peas, and so forth, they're loaded with these good amino acids. Now, the problem here is when you eat too much phenylalanine and less tyrosine, these foods have an immune system suppressing effect. Where do we get that suppression from? From, number one, from eating chicken. That's the worst of all. Then beef, tuna, crab, whole milk, and eggs. That excess protein is not good for your immune system. Notice here, the book Counsels on Diet and Foods. In many cases of sickness, the very best remedy is for the patient to fast for a meal or two, that the overworked organs of digestion may have an opportunity to rest. A fruit diet for a few days have often brought great relief to brain workers. Many times a short period of entire abstinence from food followed by simple, moderate eating has led to recovery through nature's own recuperative effort. An abstemious, in other words, a self-restraining diet for a month or two would convince many sufferers that the path of self-denial is the path to what? To health. So as you can see, as you eliminate that excess protein from your diet, you will start to recover much faster. So where are we going to get that protein? As I told you, plant foods have the perfect ratio. Enough protein for you to function, but not that excess that start causing problems. That is exactly the problem to the right on the animal foods. It's too much protein. You don't need that excess protein. You put a big pounding on your liver to disintoxicate this. You put a big pounding on your kidneys. And if you're doing this on a regular basis, that overwork of your organs make your organs age faster than what they should. So notice here, this is something very interesting to me. In America, they started promoting back in the 1980s that people needed lots of milk, lots of meat, and then some fruits and vegetables and cereals and so forth. Compare in China, what the public health authorities there were promoting were leafy green vegetables, soy products, sweet potatoes, and cereals. I vote for the Chinese one. That's a much better guideline with less excess protein. Now, who has more problems with obesity and so forth, the Chinese one or the American one? You know, who has more heart disease, who has more cancer, and so forth. So these Chinese 4 protein groups, notice that gives you very nice protein intake of 71 grams of protein. That's plenty of protein for you to function. While the American pyramid, notice they encourage you all this meat, all this dairy, and so forth. It's too much excess protein, too many animal products, and we're harvesting that. So the ideal basic food should consist of plenty of fruits, plenty of vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. This is a very nice guideline of what to eat. And just remember to take your vitamin B12, you know, if you're going to go and switch into this plan. The liability to take disease, says Councils on Diet, is increased, how many fold? Tenfold by meat eating. You know, this was written long time ago. Now we know why. That excess protein in the diet causes all kinds of problems in our health. So, as it says in the book Ministry of Healing, these foods prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible are the most helpful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. So, is this what you want to experience in your life? Well, don't have those excess. Remember the principle of temperance, isn't it? That we want to have that balance. So may God bless you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And I will see you tomorrow. The time is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Tomorrow's program would be depression, the real solution, ACE, and your health. But we start 7 o'clock tomorrow also. But this is the time if any of you have some questions, Dr. Eddie would be willing to answer. Yes, Brother Sia is going to bring the microphone. Yeah, he's coming.
Well, there's actually one here if you want to take it.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Have you addressed the issue of vitamin B12
Yes.
already?
Yeah, we have been mentioning throughout the program. So we mentioned that you need some vitamin B12. How much vitamin B12 you need depends on your age. The older you are, the more vitamin B12 you are going to need. So Today, many foods actually have vitamin B12. You can read the ingredients, some of the soy milks and so forth. Sometimes even some of the cold cereals, they add some vitamin B12. But just to play it safe, 2 times, 3 times a week, a little pill of vitamin B12 doesn't hurt. You have 7 to 10 years of reserve of vitamin B12. So believe me, you're not going to go deficient by tomorrow. It takes a long, long time to go deficient. Just to play it safe, we're going to do that on a regular basis. And it's a good idea to monitor it, in your yearly type of analysis that you may do with your GP. Just ask him, can you check my vitamin B12? And that's where you see, where things are at. I have 30 years on this plan, and my vitamin B12 is completely normal. So it's possible to have it normal.
Thank you, Dr. Ramirez, for the valuable information you gave us. But I have a question puzzled me. We all know, and there is no doubt and no one can deny this fact, that the most people live healthy and long life are the Japanese. And when we go and check their diet, they eat seafood, they drink milk a lot, and they eat fish.
Yes, sir.
How come they live for a long life?
Yes,
Number one. The second question, you mentioned about the protein and why we don't have like mice or rats milk. The answer is because you cannot milk them. Yeah, and about the protein for the kids, when they take protein from the cows and they take 60 instead of 24, the numbers, I believe, I'm not a doctor, but I like to read and study a lot. In the body of every single child and every single human being, there's something like sensors to when you feel hungry and when you feel satisfaction.
Yes.
And we all know, and you know better than all of us, that when the kids drink the milk from the bottle, they drink less than what they get from the mother. By this way, the protein will be balanced. No doubt that, the milk from the mothers is better than the cows, but at the end of the day, the amount will be balanced. And the third point is, the second people that they live longer are the Switzerland. And they eat pork, they eat chocolate a lot, and all their food are fermented food. So how come they live more than us?
Well, let me answer your question, because you're putting too many elements there. So,
Okay.
some of the things you're saying are actually not necessarily true. The longest living people on Earth are the people in the blue zones. And one factor of the people of the blue zones, go and Google it, blue zones. They follow a whole food, plant-based diet. No, they don't eat dairy. In fact, here you can see my tweet here that I put, that I was showing the other day. Look at this. These are the people that cannot digest milk properly, okay? Notice that Asians don't digest milk properly. No, the Japanese don't drink milk. With Japanese,
I said seafood.
but let me
fish.
do this one. The Japanese, if they drink dairy, they get diarrheas and all kinds of problems. The longest people in Japan are found in Okinawa, which is the southernmost part of Japan. And their seafood intake actually is minimum. They actually have gardens. There's actually an excellent documentary. I give you homework on Netflix. Google their blue zones. It just came out literally like 2 months ago. And they're showing there, what the Japanese people are eating, what the people in Sardinia are eating. That's another longest living people in the world. And the 7-day Adventists are shown there, what they're doing and so forth. So we know this from the data there's a study called the Adventist Health Study. So in America, the longest living people are the 7-day Adventists. They live 10 to 15 years more than the average American. So Adventists are a very interesting group because some of them are meat eaters, some of them are pesco-vegetarians, some of them are ovo-lacto vegetarians, and some of them are whole food plant-based diet. And the data is very clear. You can see in that data, I actually have the data, maybe some other day we can show you with more detail the data. The longest living are those following the whole food plant-based diet. Who are the ones that don't have problems with diabetes, hypertension, the risk of cancer is much less? The whole food plant-based diet. Where do you find the most disease? As you move more towards the animal products. So the data is very clear. I'll also give you another homework. There's a website you need to put in your favorites. That website is called Nutrition Facts, as in FACTS, .org. Michael Greger, which I happen to be a co-author in a nutrition book with this doctor. What he does a wonderful job at checking the scientific literature and summarizing in a 3 to 5 minute long video the issues that you may be interested in. For example, if you're interested in seafood, go and Google their seafood. Everything is free. He's not going to try to sell you any pills or anything. He's just trying to educate people and so forth. Seafood has many problems. One of them, the excess phosphorus that we're talking about. That excess phosphorus not only causes osteoporosis, but there's many other problems that come as a result of that. And also, today we are polluting too much our oceans. There was a study that was done in the Faroe Islands. Faroe Islands are above England. And those islands, they noticed that the IQ of those children were going down. As they did studies, the conclusion of the study, the excess of those sea products that they were taking when the mother was pregnant and when the baby was small, that toxicity was affecting the development of those babies' brains. So why would you want to affect your children? You know, it doesn't make sense. So yes, you know, it's a complex thing. It's many factors. So as we were seeing with the dementia, it's not just one thing, it's the whole package. So yes, you know, search about those blue zones. That's going to give you a lot of information about that longevity and so forth. What are the longest people on earth? What are they doing and so forth? You will see is that whole food plant-based diet that they are eating.
Thank you.
I think I've changed my mind now. I've been in Seventh-day Adventist for a long time, and with Carrie and my sister is an Adventist too. I know in the past my diet not very good.
Yes.
Since I changed, I can see now I'm not. Be careful. I have to be careful how I say. I see too much white bread, white rice, not enough fiber. Like brown rice is very good. Since I become when I was teenager, I was all the time in the hospital. I sick, I say that's why I keep saying Seventh-day Adventists very unique mentally, you know, all that thing very good. I think since I changed brown rice, basmati rice, you go to the toilet, bowl,
yes.
Easier fiber.
Yes.
I think it's very important. Because also that if you eat too much white rice or white, you can put on, it's no good, not enough, sugar, not enough fiber. And also some people, they're very hard to go to the toilet.
Well, I can summarize your point with the following words. The whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. So yes,
Yeah.
That's a simple principle.
And also can make you overweight if you eat too much white, you know, white.
So yeah, we just watch out just with those refined foods.
Any more? Yes, Brother Wes and James. Yeah, Brother Wes, go first.
Our son is a great lover of peanut butter.
That's right.
Is it good?
Me too. I love peanut butter. No, it's excellent, especially if you're going to be switching to that whole food plant-based diet. It's actually a good source of energy. Watch out. If your goal is to lose weight, I would actually decrease it a little bit. I'm very active and running and stuff. I need those calories. So watch out, because it can be a little bit source of calories. It's a good food. Have it in moderation if your goal is to lose weight. If you want to try to maintain your weight and so forth, you can partake a little bit more. Also, not all peanut butter is the same. I don't like many of the peanut butters, they add oils to it, coconut oil and so forth. Don't buy that type of peanut butter. Buy the peanut butter that is just the peanuts, they grind them. You have to actually mix the thing because it separates and so forth. That's the good peanut butter to take. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Brother C. James.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramirez. Really appreciate all your answers and for teaching us about all of the research that you've completed over the years. I have a question. Can an individual who is overweight still be metabolically healthy?
That's a very good question, and it's an ongoing conversation. And there are groups that are saying, yes, you can be overweight and be healthy. That's not necessarily what the research is showing, So you need to start going towards your normal weight. Now, in the process of going there, you can be healthy. As I was mentioning, on Sunday when we're talking about inflammation, how the people with excess body weight have inflammation. But as soon as they start losing the weight, you don't necessarily need to lose the 30 kilos at once, but that half a kilo that you already lost, that's enough for the inflammation to start going down. So as you're going on the right process of losing weight, the health markers start to improve. In fact, I did a very interesting research. We were documenting how people that are overweight, people that are obese, if they follow a whole food plant-based diet, they will lose weight. But people that are normal weight, that go on a whole food plant-based diet, they don't lose weight. People that are underweight that follow a whole food plant-based diet, they don't lose weight. In fact, they may even gain some weight. So this is the beauty about this. It means if you have excess body weight, you will start losing weight, and once you come down to your normal weight, you will stabilize there regarding your weight. That's the beauty of this.
Dr. Khan, you did some research on taro,
That's right.
and then he discovered that the taro from the Pacific Islands are high in steroids, natural steroids.
That's right.
So would you recommend those natural steroids?
Yes, because it's balance. See, the problem is when I get it, and then I process this, and then I start separating the nutrients, that's when I get in trouble. But when I eat it as a whole food, it's a fantastic food. I mean, that's what made those strong Samoans, that taro, and so forth. Go to the NFL is full of these Samoans, that nobody can stop them, and they're made out of taro, many of these Samoans, So yes, taro is a very good food, so yes, it's excellent, even with that.
Also recommended by medical doctors for diabetics not to eat the taro or cassava or sweet potato, but those vegetables are high in fibers. Do you think the diabetics can also eat those foods high
You
in
can
fibers?
definitely eat them. At Weimar, in our New Start program, we feed people sweet potato and even potatoes. What do you do? We're going to have we're going to talk a little bit more about diabetes later on in the week. But what you do, you eat it with high fiber foods. That's going to be the secret. You don't need the potato by itself. You don't need the sweet potato by itself. But you eat it together with legumes or with plenty of vegetables, when you do this combination, the high fiber prevents that excess glucose to go into your system. So in our New Start program, we serve legumes, the beans, lentils, chickpeas, at every meal. And we encourage our diabetics to eat these legumes at every meal. That's what keeps that glucose nice and healthy throughout the day. Okay?
Sister Sue, you got a question? No?
Because I work night shift because doctor is talking about if we not enough sleep, affect for the brain. Yeah?
That's right.
Yeah, but I work night shift, and that's why I want to ask.
That's right. If you have night shift, change your job. That's going to be the ideal thing to do. But if you have to be continuing to work in the night, you just need to make sure you are sleeping enough. There's a lot of temptation, Oh, I have to do this and that. I have to cook. I need to go shopping and so forth. Forget it. Make sure you're sleeping at least 7 hours a night. Block your windows. Make sure that they're nice and dark so that you actually rest properly, during the day that you need to rest.
We got one last one in the back.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm feeling incredibly happy for being here. It's been worthwhile. Thank you very much. My question is, yesterday I did mention that I want to talk about COVID.
Yes.
I'm taking it off course a bit, but today, luckily, you mentioned COVID. Thank God we are all here after that terrible time. My question is, I was listening to a doctor in UK called Dr. John Campbell.
Yes.
And he used to do some podcasts that I listen to. Right now, what I'm hearing is after the COVID, people that have passed away, when they do the autopsy, they find some white clots.
That's right.
That is quite foreign to the people doing that work, but the pathologists. And I just want to know, they found people that have died in Australia, UK, and the US. I'm sure other parts of the third world countries will have that if they've got the facilities.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, is it true that something like that is happening within the
Yes,
world?
and the reason why, were you here on Sunday? Oh, you missed it. I told my audience that was one of the most important lectures, is inflammation. A state of inflammation increases blood clots probability. So the people that had already chronic inflammation and they catch COVID-19, we're talking about that on Sunday, you have chronic inflammation, and COVID-19 also causes inflammation. So inflammation plus inflammation, you have tremendous amounts of inflammation, and that's what triggers all those blood clots and so forth, the high levels of inflammation in the body. So that's why, as you switch to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle with the right diet and the exercise and the rest and so forth, inflammation goes down. So your risk of getting a clot actually decreases because inflammation decreases. So that's the reason why of those clots that are found in those people that died of COVID-19.
So does it mean it's got nothing to do with the vaccine in itself?
That's a complicated question to ask because sometimes it can have an effect there, but it's mostly, the reason why they're found in those clots is because of the high levels of inflammation that COVID-19 had, and the person most probably already had some level of inflammation in them. So the combination of both was a very bad combination. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Before we close, I just want to pray. Could you please bow with me? Father in heaven, gracious and merciful God, thank you, Lord, for your Holy Spirit is among us and giving us the wisdom so we can receive the right knowledge and we put into practice in our daily life, Lord. I want to say thank you, Lord, for you finishing the program in the nice way, Lord. We want to pray for your travel mercies, Lord, so everybody will reach to their destination, to their home safely, Lord. And we will meet again tomorrow, 7 o'clock. We love you, Lord. Help us, Lord, we stay faithful to you. We ask in Jesus' holy name. Amen.